Hi, my name is Cinque Robinson, and I'm here to introduce a documentary series, a docu-series as I call it, that I am producing about how my daughter has been abused and it has been ignored. The evidence has been ignored by the authorities, the police, even the courts. Um, while standing up for my daughter, I have been put out of church, the church that I was attending, and certainly they are legally mandated reporters of abuse. That's anyone who works with children. I live here in Chicago, Illinois, and it's hard to understand why people are ignoring this. Normally, I would, when so many people are against an idea or procedure that I have going, I would take a look at myself to see what's wrong with the way that I'm thinking. But it's not a crime, and of course I'm a Christian, so I'm a religious guy. It's not a sin to fight for my daughter who's been abused. I haven't committed any sins or crimes in the method of fighting, which is to write politicians, to write the state's attorney's office, to approach them in person respectfully and politely, go to the courts, go to the police, all that, and it's just being ignored all over the place. So I want you all to take a look at this series, the first installment. It's called Excerpt is the name of the series. The first installment is subtitled By the Mouth of Two or Three Witnesses, and I'm firstly dealing with how the church has ignored the evidence and then eventually put me out for standing up and fighting for my daughter. So here we go with the first installment. This documentary web series is my entry against child abuse, including pedophilia, which my daughter is a multiple victim of. What's even more concerning to me is that despite all kinds of evidence, her abuse has been constantly ignored. Here are pictures of bruises on her leg, for which I was blamed, not by my daughter, but by her mother. These bruises were discovered by her mother 2 days after I was alleged to have done this. Alright, this video is a little dark, but okay. Got a question for you. You remember when they took pictures of you and your bruises?
Yes.
Who discovered the bruises on you? Who saw it first?
My mom.
Your mom?
Mm-hmm.
I was acquitted by the court in a bench trial, but despite my many outcries, Mom went completely uninvestigated. I contacted the Department of Children and Family Services, who refused to investigate the mother. I cried out to the court. I cried out to the state's attorney's office. To the police. And to my church. And I was unable to achieve the justice that I cried out for and I got no help from the church. I was trying to help you get justice so that you know that those things are wrong, and so that you might not ever be afraid to report it when if somebody ever messes with you. So in trying to do that, they put me out of church. So I don't go to Vernon Park anymore. They didn't like the fact that I was fighting for you. So they put me out of church, so we don't go to that church anymore.
Wait, right now we don't?
Yeah, they told me today. I got the call from the pastor today. Told me not to come back to Vernon Park because they don't like that I was fighting for you. Approximately 30 days after I was acquitted by the court of child abuse, my daughter complained of being pushed down a flight of stairs by her mother as a punishment for refusing to search for a pair of shoes.
When she was downstairs in the kitchen and I was in the kitchen, by the family, she was like, "Don't get your shoes in front of the family." And I was like, "But I'm scared." And she said, "Get on it." And then she did this.
Okay.
And then I fell and I tripped over the walkway. She pushed me immediately.
Okay.
Really, she did.
You fell over the walkway? And
It was like something over the stairs.
My daughter said that she landed at the bottom of the stairs in such a way that she was injured between her legs when landing on a baby gate at the bottom of the stairs. I was informed of this initially by a guy at my church who I worked with in the media department, who briefly watched my daughter while I stepped outside before choir rehearsal that night. He informed me immediately that I needed to talk to my daughter because she said her mother had pushed her down a flight of stairs. I took my daughter home and recorded her telling me what happened. The next morning, I took her to urgent care, and after a physical examination and a psych evaluation, the physicians believed that my daughter was the victim of child abuse and immediately called Children and Family Services, who refused to investigate. I made a police report. The police sent a specialized report to the state's attorney's office for the purpose of questioning my daughter and trying her mother in court for child abuse. But the state's attorney's office refused to question my daughter. I tried for up to a year after the incident to get the state's attorney's office to question my daughter, but they refused. What's also important to note here is that the court appointed its own expert witness, a psychological evaluator, to do what is called a home study. And this psychological evaluator, the psychologist, had determined that she didn't know whether or not my daughter had been abused or not. But she did come to the conclusion that my daughter does exhibit the behavior of one who has been sexually and or physically abused. As the parent of this child, and generally a caring person, I was devastated. Out of the incident with the bruises, the court, that is family court or domestic relations court, the court entered an order prohibiting corporal punishment, especially the use of a belt. Normally, in Illinois, corporal punishment is not illegal, but because of past abuse, which was evident from testimony and photographs of bruises on my daughter, the court had determined that hitting her with a belt would be excessive punishment from that time forward. My ex-wife would intentionally violate this order. And admit to it in court under oath. But the court did nothing. The police were engaged in some extreme misconduct here, which I will deal with in the next episode. When I get to the final episode, I will deal with my daughter as the victim of pedophilia and peeping toms, a crime that occurs every day, and police are among the perpetrators. Alright, so I'm having some issues making my report because I can't give her a day and a time.
Okay.
This has been going on for years.
We'll do a, come on.